Good evening, everyone, and happy Sunday night here from the Unlock the Middle land of educational improvement. Hey, my name is Dean Packard, the principal at Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. And tonight we have another great episode as we dig deeply into another topic that is absolutely something that's going to be amazing to talk about. Chris Starcheski is back in the house tonight. Chris, it's been a while. I know you've had some family things going on. Welcome back, sir. It's great to see you.
I'm fired up tonight, Dean. You know, this is beyond just professional development. It's an opportunity to connect with great educational leaders from around the country, along with you, my good friend, and in my district, to be able to sit down and talk about things that are really pertinent to current modern day education. Dean, I'm fired up to be back, man.
I'll tell you what, before we begin, listen, in the comments section, please let us know where you are, where you're from, who you are, and please feel free to comment into any topic that we're talking about, because we want to include you in the audience of everything that's going on here. So, hey, without any further ado, hey, the Patriots won today. It's cold up here in New England. Let's spread it around the table and get a little flair for what's going around the country here. Let's go over to Michigan and Evan. Evan, welcome to our platform. It's great to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited, Dean. Thanks for having me. You and Chris, we're excited to be on here with these amazing educators and talk about how we can remember students and things like that. And I'm from Niles, Michigan, principal at Ringlarder Middle School. We're actually 3 miles from the state line of Indiana, Michigan. So right down there in the southern part. Actually, I usually tell people we're close to Notre Dame because everyone kind of knows where Notre Dame's at. But we have about 600 students in Niles at our middle school. Big thing for us, we focus on relationships. You know, that's the key thing. And the reason why I got into education, the reason why I do what I do is want to make a difference. And I want every kid to feel like that someone has their back and that they feel like they can do anything's possible. This is my 17th year in education. I've been, assistant principal for a couple years, and this is my second year as a principal. So I've only been a principal in COVID times, so I'm really waiting for this to go away so I know what it's like in a normal time.
Well, if you've navigated through this, you're absolutely fine, man. Welcome to the show. I love it. You are hired on the spot. You've got what it takes. You said all the buzzwords to be that middle school principal. Hey, kick it down to Michael. You still have that Ohio hat? Just check.
It's not going anywhere.
There it is.
Just for Evan. Hi, I'm Michael Bobo. I'm Michael Bobo from Tampa, Florida. I've been in education for the last 23 years. I've been in administration for most of my years. I'm currently assistant principal at Barrington Middle School, and we have about 1,400 students. And it's a lot, but middle schoolers are going to be a lot anyway. But I love middle school. I wouldn't change it for anything. And the reason why I really got into it, education, is because of the relationships that you can build and everything that the students are, that energy that they give you. And you walk in the door, they get so excited about being in school, and they're not always excited, but just the energy about being there still gives me goosebumps every time I walk in the building. So it's great just to be here with y'all, Dean, today. It's like I'm excited about talking about kids. I mean, that's what we do this thing for, right? So we're just going to talk about our influence in them, and I think it's great just to be here.
You want to say hi to the person on the screen? Someone's saying hi to you right out of the gate. You and Julie.
You're stealing
my girl.
I want to make sure she got to do justice here.
She's the best. Hi, Julia.
Yes, she is.
Good stuff, Michael. Hey, welcome to the show, man. We appreciate you being here. Let's kick it over to Spike. Spike, welcome back, my friend.
Good evening, everybody. So glad to be back. And just want to thank your New England Patriots. I picked them up on my fantasy football team, their defense, and they've been doing amazing. So as an Eagles fan, it was really tough to do that, but I was able to get over it pretty quickly. My name is Spike Cook. I'm principal at Lakeside Middle School in Millville, New Jersey. I've been there for about 6 years, and prior to that, I was an elementary principal for 5. I've been in education altogether 21 years, and yes, this is the most interesting ever.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. That's
very well stated.
Dr. Tovar.
Hello, everybody. Josh Tovar, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy here in Garland ISD, Garland, Texas. Being very thankful that I spent some beautiful time with my family, sending some holiday cheer to my students, and most importantly, making sure that I'm thankful that I have this platform to connect with other leaders from one coast to the other coast, making sure that we're stronger together because we're all in it together for one reason. What's that reason? Our student success. So welcome to everybody. Let us know where you're coming from. Add those comments in our chat. We really value your opinion because that's the only way we can grow, by your opinions and your point of view. Take it away.
Love it, Josh. Love it, love it, love it. Chris, I think we left somebody out. Why don't you do the honors, my friend? Okay.
Did. We've got a
smile in
special
the upper
guest
corner.
tonight, Dean.
Okay, take it. Go ahead.
First and foremost, welcome, Julie Hasson. So excited to have you on board with us
Hey,
tonight.
thanks, Chris. Thanks, Dean.
If you could share a little bit about yourself so the world knows who Julie Hasson is, and then we can dive on in for tonight's topic. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. I was a principal in Hillsborough County, Florida, with the one and only Michael Bobo. We were principals together.
And we didn't plan this. I'm
We
just
did
telling you
not
right now.
plan it, but it's the best. And Delia, who was just commenting on the chat, I left my principal position in 2015, became a professor, and now I'm at Appalachian State in leadership and education studies. So I teach grad students. All my students are aspiring principals, elementary, middle, and high. But I have to say the middle principals have a special place in my heart. There's just something about working with kids who are forming their identity and who are trying to figure out who they are in the world. It's so important to leave such an impact. So I'm happy to be here with all of you to talk about my research, which is focused on long-term teacher impact. So what do our students remember about us, whether we're teachers, administrators, whatever our role, years, even decades after they leave us? And we'll find it's those small moments of connection that really stick with the kids that we work with.
Hey, Julie, before we go there, I'm gonna pick your brain for a moment. What is Chalk and Chances? What is the Chalk and Chances project?
So when I left my principal position, I was the principal of my first grade teacher, Nancy Russell, who was the greatest teacher ever. Loved her. And I had the opportunity for 3 years to go back and reconnect with my first grade teacher as her principal. When I became a professor, she retired from teaching after 40 years. And as a new professor, I had to have a research focus. So my focus became, what do teachers like Mrs. Russell say and do that makes this lasting impact on kids like me? Highly anxious, struggling reader, like all the things that first grade teachers dread to see walking through the door. She had her hands full with me. And I think so often, if she hadn't been so patient, if she hadn't believed in me, if she hadn't used the approaches she did, I would have seen myself differently as a learner, and my trajectory would be so different. But because Miss Russell ended up in life at that really important time, I became competent and confident, and everything has been built on this foundation that she laid. So when I had to name the project something, I thought about, what did Mrs. Russell use to impact me? It was chalk, lots of chalk, because it was the 70s, and lots of chances, so many chances. So that became the blog.
I absolutely love that, Chalk and Chances. I too remember growing up during the chalk days. So again,
Yes.
it's it was a special time. There's no doubt. But we
Didn't you
definitely
fight to clap the erasers or put them on that chicken wire eraser cleaner? Michael Bobo knows what I'm talking about.
use the side of the school with the eraser to get all the stuff out of clapping them.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Remember that vividly. Hey, let's talk about tonight's main topic. What we're really going to dig into tonight is what former students really remember about the process. And I was saying this to Chris earlier in the group, and we haven't had a session on this at all. We've talked a lot about processes, and we've talked about from the viewpoints from authors and different capacities, but we've never dug in from a kid's perspective. So let's throw that out a little bit. And Julie, why don't you start with that first, and then we'll kick it around the room a little bit and talk about it.
All right. So I've spent the last 4 years interviewing people about the teachers they remember. And I started this project talking to teachers. So asking them about their impact. The truth is, we really don't know unless a former student comes back to us, writes us a note, sends us a letter, reaches out. We don't really know what our impact is. So I realized I need to talk to former students, but they're everywhere. So I went to farmers markets, craft fairs, college campuses, anywhere people congregate, to invite them to talk to me about their teachers. And I think I'm on interview 412 now. COVID slowed me down a bit, but we're getting back in, and just collected stories about the things that people remember about their teachers. So what was it that they carry and use years, even decades later? I talked to a woman who is 85 years old who had this very clear memory of her middle school speech teacher. And so we can't underestimate the longevity of our impact and the power of the impact that we have.
Absolutely agree. Can you hear a little bit of feedback with our mic? Is that, I don't know if that, Julie, is that your headset? Not 100% sure.
I'm going to turn my volume down a tiny bit.
Yeah, see if that works.
And see if that helps.
We adjust on the fly on Unlock the Middle, so whatever.
Is that better? Does that sound better?
Yeah, a little bit
okay,
better.
Okay, good.
How about everybody else? Everybody else good? Yeah, we saw a little bit of feedback, but that's okay. The show is about feedback in some capacity. We're going to take it and we're going to work with that. So yeah, the perspective of how kids remember their teachers. And so one of the things we talk about here often is, not being afraid to ask the kids, during the session when kids are in class, because I think it's vitally important to get that feedback. And sometimes it's a struggle. I think for educators, it's a fear zone. It's almost like you're almost afraid to ask why. So let's kick that down around and go around a little bit first. Chris, kick it over to you first.
Yeah, as I said here, I think about, Julie's work, and, Julie, congratulations on interviewing students or former students about what the impact that teachers have had on them. I think back to one of my 7th grade teachers, and I was a math teacher by trade, just so everybody knows, and I'm now a middle school principal. But one of the educators who sticks out in my mind is actually a 7th grade geography teacher that I had, Mrs. Thompson, and every day it wasn't a big deal if you forgot your pencil, because she would always have a number of pencils or pens, but she called them fun writers. And her idea was that anything that we're engaging in the classroom was going to be fun. It was going to lead to new doors, new avenues, new perspectives. And for me to recall that after so many years, when we had chalk on the board and the teacher providing pencils, it's one of those examples of influences that folks don't really understand how much power they have, over kids. As we sit down and we think about the importance of connection, and Josh always mentions that, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's what's going to stick, with all of us as we sit down and go. But let's kick it out to the Midwest. Evan, thoughts?
Yeah, this is just a great topic, Julian. I'm so glad you've done so much research on it. And I think about this a lot, and I feel like we have these conversations with my staff, Alex. I feel like so many times in education, we just get so caught up in what our content is that we're teaching, that we just really want to make sure that they're learning something. But we really go a lot on this quote that I've heard is care about them first, teach them second. I just feel that's so powerful, and I just feel I've heard too. They're gonna remember you. Students are gonna remember you by how you made them feel. And I think back, same thing in my experience as well, just like Chris was talking about. I just remember the kindness that teachers had. They understood me, right? They treated me differently than everyone else based on what I needed. They showed grace and patience, and just that caring and kindness goes a long ways. And I feel like those are some of the biggest lessons that I took away from me and my coaches that I had, those mentors, teachers, and just them modeling that for me. Once that makes me want to give back too. That was really powerful. And that's what we always try to keep talking about in our building too.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Kick it down to Michael.
So when we first started talking about this, first, Julie, I admire your work. The things you're doing is like phenomenal, because you're focusing on something that a lot of us don't focus on, but we need to hear and we need to know. So I think it's excellent what you're doing. And when I thought about just getting into education, it was about the connection with students. And as you continue to connect with them, that's what they're going to always remember. They're not going to remember the homework. They're not going to always remember the multiplication problem. They're going to remember that connection. So when I was younger, I'm a band guy. So of course, my high school band guy teacher was always on me, and he taught me a lot, and he took me further. But that wasn't the influential teacher in high school for me. When I was in algebra, I was taking algebra 1, and my mom's a math coach and all this kind of stuff, but I'd never wanted to talk to her about it. But this math teacher, the first year I took it, I failed all my classes, like the first 5 tests. I failed all of them. So I just gave up. I just said, I'm not doing it. So every day I came to class, I slept. So of course I failed that year. I came back the next year and they put me in her class again. The first day of class, she took me outside and said, Michael, last year I failed you. You slept and I didn't help you like I should have. So if you want another teacher, you can go, because I know you might not feel that I care about what you're doing. I said, no, it's my fault, because I didn't take initiative to do it. She said, but you know what, Michael, I know you can do it, and I want you in my class. Guess what I got that year? All A's, no question, because I knew that she cared about me. And for her to even say, I didn't take you on last year like I should have, and then be humble enough to talk to me about it, man, she won me over. Like, she's the best teacher in the whole wide world now. Don't tell my mom though, but she's the best teacher in the whole wide world because of just that connection that she made with me. So making that connection is what I've always continued to try to do every day I walk into the building, no matter what student I come in contact with.
Awesome. Hey, Josh, what do you think?
I think part of the question that Dean asked right now was about why we fear it. And just having almost 3 decades under my belt, it's one of those situations where we don't put in the time for somebody that sits in our chair. What do I mean by that? That means that we don't give the quality time to be with our kids in the classroom, at the choir concert, at the orchestra concert, because you know what? Kids don't need to see you only with the football player and the basketball player. They need to see you at cross country. They need to see you at the art competition. And that's where those true connections you are from someone that sits in our chair. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, when you see your climate survey where the kids attack you and they say they don't know who their principal is, who their teachers are, that's because the lack of leadership of being there. Fish philosophy, be there. And so how can you make those everlasting connections if you're not present at their sites? And you know what? A lot of the majority of our nonsense that's created on Facebook nowadays can be ended as long as we're there at cheer competition. If we are there at softball games, if we are making sure that we lend our ear to our kids, most importantly, that we're walking around with trash cans at lunchtime, us, as someone that sits in our chair, and having those conversations with kids as we pick up their trash. You know what? And that's how you truly get into the kids' zone. Because once you do that and you start promoting your things out on social media, the kids will tell you everything. Let me tell you, once the kids feel comfortable with connecting with you, especially someone that sits in my chair, they're going to let you know where the fights are, where the drug deals are. They're going to let you know where the upcoming social media noise is going to be. But you got to put in the time. You can't have a desk going from your chest and figure out that you have perfect climate and culture. And those kids need to be there seeing you. And that's when they're going to know, hey, that's my assistant principal. Hey, that's my principal. Hey, you know what? That's my AP teacher. But it's about putting in the time. And that's the question. We reflect on it and say, did we really put in the time? And we fear getting those answers from kids.
Spot on, Josh. Spike.
Wait, so I was a little confused because I thought like we were thinking about like, what we remember from school. It was the lesson plan format, homework, and all that stuff. That's not it.
It can be perspective.
I couldn't help myself. No, I think it's a great topic, and I'm so glad that Julie's on here talking about this. I've been a big fan of hers for a long time. But I say that like with sarcasm, but a little tongue in cheek, because if you think about the emphasis that we put on as modern day instructional leaders, these are the things that we're, really looking at. And the reality is that it's not, it's, just to kind of go off of what Evan and Josh and Mike have said, it's so true that it's more about the connections that you can make both inside and outside the classroom, in the hallways, at the different events. And I'm really excited to see how this work is going to grow and help educators to kind of fight off that, standardized, environment that's taken over education, through narrowing the curriculum and narrowing our focus. Because what is our long game, right? What we want to make sure that we're planting, a forest, not just a flower garden.
I love that analogy. I'm sitting here thinking about my basketball practice and my baseball practice that I've got to coach tomorrow night. And one of the things that I think, Dean will get this, and anybody else in sports here will, as coaches, especially at the level that we are, youth sports, middle level, even if it's AAU middle level, we're trying to build students and athletes who have a love of the game and want to improve their skills over time. And that's not all about X's and O's on paper. It's about treating them as humans and relating to them as people. So that way they can understand that, the coach knows the strategy and knows the philosophy and knows the technical elements, just like the teacher, going back to Spike, with the lesson plans and the standardized test scores and, the warm-up activities. But more importantly, if we can culture and engender them into the idea that we're building and cultivating people, that are going to be kind and smart and innovative and creative and be honored for themselves. That's what we're going to be, able to take them all to the next level, and that all starts with connectivity and connection. And, as we sit down and think a little bit about this and to dive in a little bit deeper, with Julie's idea, how do educators go ahead and foster that idea of the smallest connection with every single student? Where do they begin, and how do they stay out of the, I guess, the forest of all the accountability and not worry about those things? Where do we go?
I'm going to pipe in because for me, after I started interviewing people and looking at their stories, then I started to look in the broader context of research. What do we know? And John Gottman is a psychologist who really studies married couples, but his research is applicable to what we do. It's about bids for connection. So recognizing when someone is making a bid for connection and responding to that in a confirming positive way. So our kids are always making bids for connection. Even sometimes things that are aggravating to us really are their attempt, although sometimes misguided, at connecting with us. And if we can respond to that bid or that signal in a positive, affirming way, we build trust over time and we build that relationship over time. But in order to do that, we have to be really present so that we notice the bid when it comes. And I think so many of the things you talked about, Spike, get in the way of our ability to be fully present and responsive because we're worrying about following the lesson plan or having the right objective on the board or whatever it is that's happening, instead of saying, how can I really focus on this kid in front of me and try to understand what they want, what they need, what their dreams are, and what's my role in assisting with all of that.
Julie, in the preparation programs that are out there right now, and I know you talked about that you lead leaders, you train leaders, that trickles down into the teacher mindset as well. How much time is spent on actually talking about cultivation of relationship over pedagogy, where the leadership part has to be done? In this business that we're in, it's a people's business, okay? If you can't sell a product to the person in front of you, you're done before you get out of the gate. So if you don't have the relational skills, forget it. Don't go into this business. You're not selling widgets. You're selling people. Okay. So where does that stand from your perspective?
I think every class I teach, trust is probably the thing that we spend the most time on. How do we build trust? What breaks trust? Because if as principals, we don't have a strong degree of trust with our teachers, with our students, with our parents, with our community, we're sunk from the beginning. And so much of even my data-informed decision-making class, there's trust as the foundation of that. But it's the same with classroom teachers and their students. If we don't start with trying to build that foundational trust, we can't put anything on top of that.
So speaking of trust, kick this around the room right now. How much time do you, my fellow leaders, spend with your staff talking about why trust in relationships really trump the learning? So let's kick it down to Spike first. We'll go kind of counterclockwise here.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think as leaders, not only do we have to talk about it, but we have to actually embody it. So I think, there's one thing about talking about it, in our staff meetings or, small groups and things like that. But I think the most important thing is to the day-to-day, building the trust, building the relationships with your staff. Because I think that's most important for school leaders, right? So you have to model that. You have to also do it with students as well. So that's everything from, somebody comes to you and they share something with you, and it's, if there's something that you can do to help them out, you do that, you follow up with them. If you say that, say, for instance, we all say, oh, family first, we're a family here. When there's an emergency, you let them go and you find coverage, or you cover them yourselves, and you don't lead with judgment and things like that. Even, we've all been talking about how difficult this year has been with our leadership team the other day. I don't think I've ever wanted to say something like that, but I wanted to validate, like, listen, sometimes you guys are going to have to take a mental health day. And I understand that coverages are really bad this year. Please don't worry about us. We'll figure it out. Just like when you're here, we figure it out for somebody else. But please just don't judge, others who are taking time and things like that. So I think you have to make yourself vulnerable as well. You have to share things about yourself. You have to share things about your family, about your, the things that you're excited about, that the frustrations that you have, and both the failures and the successes. So, those are some of the things that I would say, but you certainly have to earn it, just like with, with students and with parents and community. You have to earn it with your staff. You have to be there for them. Because you can always, quote unquote, hold them accountable in other ways. That's, in a private way, so that people don't see that. But, what do they say? Like praise in public, and I forgot the other side, but anyway.
Guide in private.
Yeah, there you go. Guide in private. So those are some of the things that come to mind.
Yeah, good stuff. Evan, how about you?
Yeah, I feel like this is what we embody at Ring Lardner. It's really about the trust and the relationships. I feel like that's our conversations are all lead into that first. And I really feel like it comes down to intentionality. I feel like we all connect with people that are like us real easily, but are you making those intentional, connections with staff, or even, students that might have different likes or dislikes as you? Because those are the ones where you're really going to make some huge strides with. You can really make a difference with those students. Because I feel a lot of times, people are like, oh, I got great relationships. Well, then you see, they have great relationships with the 5 or 6 students that, they easily connect with. But it really is huge to be able to understand each student. Listening to them, I just feel, is a huge piece of building that trust. And I found that a lot over the last couple of years. And like Spike said, it's that modeling piece. If we listen to our staff, then they're more likely to be listening to the students, and that gives them empowerment, right? Whether we do, they might be complaining or give us ideas. As long as they know it's a safe place where they can give us ideas, we might not do everything they say, but at least they know that we're listening and we care. We can validate what they say. It really kind of goes a long ways with that, building that relationship and building that trust and that empowerment, right? We want them to be able to be them. It's not, I'm telling them what to do every day, this or that. It's not micromanaging. It's giving them that empowerment to say, hey, you are leaders. You're in the classroom every day. You know more about being a science teacher, a social studies teacher than me, because I don't teach those subjects. So how about you tell me some ways that we can make this department better or our school better, and how can you be a leader in 8th grade or 7th grade to help that empowerment, the message that we're trying to get through, and just being real, right? I think if we can be real and really show them who we are. I love how Spike talked about vulnerability. So I think that's a huge piece in them knowing it's not perfect. It's that positive mindset, but also knowing we're going to have hard days, but there's always going to be something good is going to happen eventually. So
the sun will come out tomorrow. Absolutely. Well said. Michael.
So being in the middle, not being a principal and not being a teacher is always difficult with that balance. But I continue to say that we need to make sure that the teachers feel supported, and it's building that relationships with the teachers, but also showing them how you deal with certain students that I don't deal with all of them the same. I deal with them differently, And some of them I can do a phone call home and then it's fine, but others might have to, have difficult consequences. But what I also learned being at this school at Barrington, it is a high social economic school. And a lot of things that I don't think is a big deal to some of the teachers and some of the students. So I had to, a lot of times as a leader, I'm stepping back saying, all right, listen to what they're saying. For instance, especially since this is COVID years, a lot of students and a lot of students and teachers are going through a lot of mental distress. And some of them realize it, some of them don't realize it. And we have to make sure as leaders that we don't give them more stress, that we continue to take things off of them. And also, like, I have a lot of students that are going through a lot of stress because their parents are going through stress. So how do we navigate through that to make sure that student feels connected, but most importantly, feels like when they go into the classroom, they can learn. So a couple of times, even during faculty meetings, we had to say, teachers, take your time. Like Dr. Cook said, take your time. We will be fine. Even if we have 10 teachers out, we'll go in the classroom. It's not a problem. You take your time, because when I need my time, guess what? I'm going to take my time so that I can make sure that I'm mentally ready to be there for you, but I'm not going to slack on supporting you whenever you need that time. So I think it goes like with our teachers and especially with our students, because if our students don't feel supported, then everything goes awry, because they're the ones that we're here for. So we need to make sure that they feel that support also.
Principal Tovar.
It's just as Principal Caffelli says, you can't fake the funk. Who you are is who you are. And you need to be consistent with that. Because I've been around so many leaders and they say, oh, I'm a servant leader. Oh, I'm this kind of leader. Oh, just reach out to me. And then when you do, as Jimmy Casa says, they're a lit. They don't answer. They don't return the text. They don't call back. But when they're publicly, they're faking the funk. Oh, I'm a servant leader. I'm here for you. Please, there's no time. That's the whole thing. You have to role model, as Spike said, the expectation. If you really are that, and they text you at 11 o'clock, you better answer that. Because once the second that you don't answer that text, they're going to tell everybody at the lounge, oh, he tells me this, and he didn't answer, and I really needed him at 11 o'clock because my kid was sick. You know what? You're faking the funk. So it's very important, as Spike said, you need to role model the expectations and then place him in areas of success. Because if you are saying you're a familia, you got to empower everybody. If we really want the kids to be great and we want our institution to be great, as Jim Collins says, we need to build sustainable leadership, making sure that everybody is a role, holding PD, being role models as we do instructional rounds in their classrooms, whatever it might be. Even you might be a first-year teacher, 10-year teacher, whatever it is, but you're in that spotlight. That second, we value what you're doing and let's highlight you. So for me, it's those two things. If you say you are a servant leader, act like it. Because the second that you don't do it, because you're having a bad day, everyone's going to know about you lying to them. And number two, making sure that you empower your team. Don't just say you're a family. What are you doing? Like Principal Caffelli says, okay, you say you're this type of person, prove it. Tell us what you're doing. Number them off. Well, 5 kids like me. Well, that's not good enough. That's not everybody. I don't believe all kids. So it's one of those things. Also, someone that sits in our chair. If we say we're a family, if we really are supportive of each other, then we need to make sure we empower everybody. Even that ankle biter. You know what? We try to do our best to bring them along. We're not going to spend a long time on them because you know what? Sooner or later, hopefully you get on board. We love you. We care about you. That's another thing that I've learned also. Hurt people hurt people. And it's going to take more than a couple of grooming along to get them on board because of other administrators that did not answer the phone call, that wrote them up for being sick on a Friday and on a Monday. It's those things that when you go into a campus, we need to make sure that we do not fake the funk.
I love the ankle biter thing. You always say that, Josh. That comes out. That is, even the ankle biters are important to us. All part of the learning community. Hey, 2 other things we got to get into right here. Let's talk about the transformation and the identity formation when you're talking about remembering. Julie, kick it back to you.
One of the things that surprised me in all of these 400 plus interviews is how many people talked about a middle school teacher. So I assumed they'll talk about high school because that's their most recent, or maybe elementary because they spend all day with that one teacher. But surprisingly, a huge proportion of these interviews mentioned a middle school teacher. So I went to my colleagues in psychology and said, why is this? And they said there's something called a reminiscence bias. So we remember more of the things that happened to us, and we have a preference for the things that we experienced from age like 10 to 20. But especially during those middle school years when we're trying to figure out who we are in the world, what do we like, what do we want to become, and the middle school teachers who are integral in that process make this lasting, really important impact on kids' lives. And I think Adele has been that Adele clip that's been on social media. You know, she talked about was it a middle school English teacher? She even remembered the bracelets that that woman wore. And I'm finding the same thing in my research. They remember these middle school teachers. One remembered the Converse tennis shoes his middle school social studies teacher wore. I think when you're a kid at that age and trying to navigate a difficult time, especially now for kids experiencing this time in the world, a teacher who sees you, who sees what you can become, and who sees their role in taking you from where you are to where you can be is a really affirming part of your life. And anybody who is in a authority position and gives discretionary effort on your behalf says something about your worth. And so it's so beautiful what you guys in middle school are doing for kids.
You know, thank you for saying that, because I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I'm getting close to that age. So, and it's the magic of being in the middle, because every day is special. Every day is unpredictable. Every day is an opportunity. And I think we as leaders, all on this call right here, could probably attest to that somehow within their buildings and what that's like. Evan, kick it over to you on this last one here. Just kind of dig in a little bit deeper about that topic of that magic that happens from being in the middle for those kids.
Yeah, I really feel like I got an assistant principal last year who was at the high school for all his years. He taught at high school. He was 10 years as a assistant principal at the high school, and he came to the middle school. And he was like, wow, it is a lot different here in middle school. And he's like, he really liked it. But it was that thing we kept talking about, like middle school kids just need an adult. Yeah. They just really need someone.
A champion.
Right?
Yeah.
They just really want to connect with you. They want someone to talk to. They really, it's just like trying to discover themselves. So it's really, they just need someone to listen to them, kind of guide them, support them. They just need that encouragement, because it's that social aspect of, they really want to be seen and they want to be heard. And they really are thinking about, what is everyone thinking of me, and we as educators and people in the middle really have to be there to help guide them along through those middle school years, because those are the toughest times. So I think back to my middle school years, and those are the most awkward times of your life, is when you're at middle school. And it is true. They're like little people still, but they're also like adults at the same time. So that's what makes it so much fun being with middle school kids, because they're at that middle stage.
Michael, take it.
So I was just thinking when Evan said that, a lot of them, and I always tell teachers this, I said, they do look like grown-ups, but they're not. They're still kids. And it's interesting, because when they're making that transition in middle school, this is why I love middle school, because you can be that adult for them, and you can be real to them, and you can show them, I'm not like everybody else, so you don't have to be like everybody else. And they'll come to you because of the connection, but you're real with them. So it goes back to what Josh's saying, not only being real with your staff, but real with the kids. Like, this is who I am, and I'm not anything different. And then when they see that, they was like, oh man, I can be who I am. And of course, I mean, nowadays, especially with social media, we're all fighting social media, and social media is their world. It's not true, but it's their world. And since it's their world, we are fighting against that. But the students are fighting, still trying to find themselves in a social media world, something we haven't even dealt with. So when you're dealing with that, I love the fact of being able to continue to encourage that student to say, no, that social media is not you. You are you. And you can grow up to be whatever you want to be. And you can be academically successful anyway. We're here to help you get there. So, and it's amazing to me, because the more I do this, and I tell people this all the time, I started in education in 1999. I said they're the same middle school students from 1999. They're no different. It's just that it's a different generation. So as we go through different generations, they're the same ones looking for an adult. They're the same ones looking for somebody to encourage them. Same ones looking for someone just to be there for them. And the most important thing is we have to be consistent. Every day we have to be consistent with. If you're consistent, they can never say anything else about Mr. Bobo because I know he's gonna say no. Yep, you're exactly right. But I still love you. But you can't do that. I'm gonna continue to be consistent.
Love it. Spike.
Yeah, that's interesting, Julie, that your research has shown that there's a lot of voices that are hearkening back to the middle school time. And I think that like I got the opportunity to sit in on a pageant show at the high school, and they do interviews, right? So it was very interesting when they said like the teacher that impacted them the most. The majority of the kids talked about middle school teachers, which really I always thought it was the elementary or the high school because, high school is like the culmination. They, kind of remember that. It's like the rah-rah, or like you said, the elementary where you have them pretty much all day. So I did, I share that kind of stuff with the staff because I know that it needs to make sure like that sinks in. And then like sometimes we'll see like in the interoffice mail, the amount of like invitations that go out to our middle school teachers from the high school kids if they're getting inducted into the National Honor Society and things of that nature. And I think it speaks volumes to the roles that we all play in the middle. And I'll be honest, like when I was a kid, I never thought I'd grow up to be a middle school principal. I just never even thought of that. I didn't even thought I would go into education. I was such a slacker and I had no idea what I wanted to do, but there's a lot of caring people, in my life that, encourage me to get beyond, whatever those constraints are. Because like when I felt like when I was younger, the people who wanted to go into education were the ones that got all good grades, and I think a lot of that has changed. And I think, just kind of continues to go back to, that we don't realize the difference that we're making. And I think that's the environment that we have to create, again, going back to staff and staff development. And I've said it many times, on the show, it's like, if you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the kids. And that's a great book too, if you want to Google that.
Josh.
You know what? I've been very blessed in all this time to have been experienced from the elementary to the high school level and teaching at the college level also, to where there's two sets of team members that I've always sent love to. Kindergarten teachers, Dios mío. Dios mío. God bless you. And shout out to 8th grade teachers. Dios mío. Because I was one of them. And so the first 9 years of my career was as a middle school U.S. history teacher. And it's one of those things that everything that Arya said is so true. My kids follow me on social media, and they remember me teaching them about the Constitution, about the preamble, let everything. They remember every single last thing. And it's a value because we really make that connection during, there was a book that Mr. Victor Montes, my first principal, gave us that let me understand. It was Kissing a Frog. I think that's what it's called, Kissing a Frog. And there it made me change my whole idea behind the middle school, because that's when they're going through puberty. Their bones are stretching out. All the hormones are being secreted. And when they fall asleep in your class, they're not disrespecting you. It's puberty. They're just tired at night. Their bones are growing. And so they're just tired. They say, and you ask middle school kids, they say, why are you asleep? I'm just tired. Yeah, because you're growing. Exactly. So once I had that aha moment with that book, I was able to okay, I need to chill out. I need to make sure that and once I understood that made me grow a closer connection to my kiddos. So I value those years. And you know what? If the Lord keeps on giving me what I want, I will retire as a Texas history 7th grade teacher. My last 2 years, and that's where I'll tap out and I'll say, I'm done, because I want to go back home. Where's home? The middle school. That's where all the fun is. Not the elementary, not the high school. The fun is at the middle.
And I would add one thing, Chris. I'm going to kick it to you for 1 second. Just every student that walks in your door is different. Everybody's different for their access point to learning. Everybody's different from their access point social emotionally. And every student that walks in your door at a middle level needs a champion. And if you can remember that, the teaching will take care of itself if you can remember those other things first. Chris, hold on 1 second. I'm just going to throw this to Julie because I want to just throw this out there if I could. Safe, seen, and stretched. Okay, we're running out. We got 15 minutes left in our little session here. I want to make sure we talk about that. So what is that all about?
So I'm a qualitative researcher, which means my research is done through interviews or observations. And once I had about 100 interviews in this project, people's stories about their teachers, I started to look for common themes. And it's like you said, it's about how they felt in their favorite teacher's classroom. And over again, they fell into 3 categories. Students talked about feeling safe, especially kids who have experienced some trauma. Or who didn't feel safe many other places. They talked about feeling seen, which you all have said over and over tonight. A teacher really saw them for who they are, who they could be. And then they really talked about feeling stretched. So some tough love kinds of conversations, some challenge, like you talked about, Michael, in your math teacher's classroom, pushed to work hard, pushed to reach a goal. So safe, seen, and stretched. Even now, 412 interviews in, I have not found an exception to those themes. It's what people remember. They remember feeling safe and seen and stretched.
Chris?
Yeah, the concept of safe, seen, and stretched, it really reminds me of, the idea that middle school is an opportunity to take risk in a safe environment. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is written in indelible ink. I like to relate it to the idea of bowling. Here in the Northeast, we do candlepin bowling, but you can relate it to 10-pin bowling. When you're just starting out in the elementary school, you've got the guide that you can roll the ball down and you can aim it, and the ball will pretty much roll straight and will knock the pins down, and everybody celebrates the strike or the spare. In middle school, we remove that guide and we remove the rolling the ball between the legs. We let them experiment, but we install the bumper lanes, right? So the ball can bounce off the left and the right and still get a strike, can still get a spare. The kids are experimenting with their ball rolling, with their technique, and they're feeling a little bit more brave. When it gets to high school, those bumper lanes roll down and a lot more gutter balls are rolled. The score is decreased and it feels a little bit more permanent. And the kids might end up with a love of the game. They might not. But the idea is that in middle school, they've got to be able to be who they are, take risks, and allow others to see them for what they could possibly be, not for who they are or who they are defined as at that point in time. That was my belief in the math classroom, and that's my belief now as a middle level educator. And, the idea that safe, seen, and stretched, I love the alliteration right there. And, it's everything that we believe, as middle level educators. I think if you're really a middle level educator, you've got to strive to allow kids to be safe, to be seen, and to be stretched, to develop their own identity and become who they can be, not who we want them to be or who we see them as right now.
We're in the 2-minute drill. What advice would you give to the teachers in your building to be that type of teacher or that type of person to have kids remember them for who they are? Let's go right around the room. Michael, we're going to start with you.
Stay connected with your students and always treat them as they are, not how you want them to be, like that was said before.
Spike.
I would say you have to be yourself. You can't be anybody else. You can't be the teachers on TikTok and Instagram either. You have to be yourself.
Evan.
I like to say, don't take it personal. Start a new day, new every day, and show them love every day, no matter what happens the next day. So,
Josh.
Be consistent and caring.
Julie.
I would say just be fully present and try to respond to what they're throwing out, whether it's a need or a strength or a joke. Laugh at their joke. Just be there for kids.
Me, Dean, be authentic. Be yourself. Do what you do best, because you get into this business because of the love of kids, and you're in where the spot you're in because you're good at what you do. Don't forget that. Chris.
Yeah, you know what, Dean? I'm just going to wrap it up by saying ditto to all of this. I think being your authentic self and being encouraged to, embrace the reality that we're in, to identify that the future is unwritten and can be anything that we want it to be is really important. It's really special. Julie, Evan, Josh, Spike, Michael, thank you so much for joining us tonight. On behalf of Dean and I, we're so blessed and grateful to be able to be stretched and extended with our professional capacities just by talking to you. Those of you in Unlock the Middle Land, be sure you check Julie Hasson out in one of her TED Talks. Look her up online. She is unbelievable in terms of resource for building a better tomorrow through leadership and relationship. Everybody, it's Sunday night. It's time to say goodnight. Dean?
One thing, I always do this to you, Chris, because I like that. Julie, I want to offer our service to you. Anytime we can help the teachers, the leaders to engage in conversation, call on us. Call on this network of principals that we've established. We will come on. We will have conversation with them. We'll make it real. And you can't beat that. And I've reached out to our local colleges as well. They haven't quite found that opportunity yet. But if we can help you, help others become better, we're all over that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Chris?
Well, hey, everybody. Hey, it's Sunday night. We got a big holiday weekend wrapping up. I hope your Thanksgiving was fantastic. You got some time with friends and family. Maybe you watched a special football game. You're a Michigan fan or Ohio State fan, Auburn fan or Alabama fan. Whoever you follow, I hope it was a lovely one. Spike, sorry about your Eagles. And, Josh, Houston and Dallas, keep rolling. Hey, be well out there, everybody. Have a great, great week ahead.